everybody, today we're going to work on our special monthly project for the Perfectly Pieced subscription. I already have a block tutorial up. It's the block tutorial and mystery quilt video. You can watch that if you'd like to see one of these work through step by step with the background quilting. Today we're going to work through one without the background quilting, and we're going to add this free home stitched applique. With your Perfectly Pieced subscription, you get this printout. It shows you the block, the quilting, the borders, the featured project, and then some block project ideas on the back. We're going to do something different today. Today we're going to be making a 12-inch pillow using the 8-inch snowball block. If you have a smaller hoop, you can piece together the 4-inch snowball blocks if you like. I've got everything together. For the home stitch applique, you need fabrics for the house. I'm using this turquoise floral. This comes from Lori Holt's Mercantile line. The door, my house is going to have a red door, and the windows. I've got white fabric here, and it does have fusible on the back. Since I'm going to be making the 8-inch snowball block, I need a 9-inch piece of fabric. I'm going to be using this B cross stitch. It's a Lori Holt fabric. I did put fusible on the back. I am using Kimberbell's fusible backing today. And then I have my 4 corner pieces for the snowball, 2.5 by 4 if you're making the 8-inch snowball. That's going to take care of the snowball block, and then we're going to put our applique on the snowball block. Since this is an 8-inch block and I'm working with a 12-inch pillow form, we're going to need to make our block a little bit bigger. I've cut 2.5-inch strips of fabric. 2 are slightly longer than 8 inches because they're going to border that 8-inch block. And then 2 are slightly longer than 12 inches because we're going to start with the 8-inch and add the strips to the sides, and then we're adding to the top and bottom. So these need to be a little bit bigger. We're going to make an envelope back. I already cut 2 pieces here. They're about 12 inches by 7. I was in my scrap pile and I had just enough to cut my background for the snowball block and to cut 2 pieces to make an envelope back. I've starched these with Faultless Heavy Finish spray starch. In fact, all of my fabrics are starched. And then I folded over one edge like that, pressed it, and top stitched it. So when we go to make our envelope back, these will overlap and then you'll slide in the pillow form, and we'll do that together. For trim, I have some of this really fun palm trim. I ordered this online. You can probably also find this in a local craft or quilt shop. It is sold by the yard and online. You're able to buy the whole, I don't know what you want to call this thing, spool. It's a big spool of it. I like to buy it like this. I like to use it for pillows and craft projects. It's really handy. I've already pulled my threads. Here's the thread colors that I'm going to be using today. These are Floriani threads. I have them in my leather snap tray. I have a video on my channel showing how to embroider on a Kimberbell leather snap tray. This Creativity Blooms is free. That's what I use on the video, and I show you how to put the felt on the bottom of that as well. On my machine, in order to make the 8-inch block, I have to use my 9.5 by 14-inch hoop. The next smaller hoop size I have is 8 by 12, and the file to make the 8-inch block is actually bigger than 8 inches, so I have to use my biggest hoop. Let's head over to the machine. We'll load our files, we'll make our snowball block, add the applique, put our pillow together, and we'll have a great little pillow. You can keep this for yourself at home, put it by your entryway. It's a great housewarming gift, something quick and easy you can do probably in a couple of hours if you're not filming. Let's go get started. I'm on a baby lock meridian today, and I'll be working with the 8-inch block. I did go ahead and load it onto my machine. We're going to do the single block snowball block without the quilting this time. If you're working on a machine where you can't fit the 8-inch block, you can make 4 of the 4-inch blocks, piece them together, and then you can put your house applique right on top in the middle. Let's go ahead and load our block. And I'm able to load my applique right on top of this. Let's go ahead and add our free design, and there's going to be a link below for this. It says Home is Stitched with Love. My machine automatically centers it, so I'm ready to go. It's going to work beginning to end, piecing the snowball block first and then moving right into the applique. I'm going to save this to my machine since I've got everything set and ready to go. I'm going to put this color thread on my machine. It's a neutral off-white thread, and we're going to get started making our snowball block. As far as what kind of needle to use, a regular embroidery needle will be just fine for this project. I happen to have my super non-stick 8012 on. If you've been watching my videos, it's still the same needle. I haven't changed it yet. It's still working. I'll keep working with that today. This is a little bit different than my video where we did the block with the background quilting, so we'll go ahead and step through the snowball block. The first thing we're going to do is stitch out the piecing template. It goes right on your stabilizer. The piecing template is stitched out. You want to grab your piece 1 fabric, which is your big piece of fabric, 9-inch square. You need to make sure it completely covers all those lines of stitching. I'm actually going to take this off my machine and tape it into place. I added tape on all sides, so top, bottom, and on both sides, and then I actually flipped my hoop over to the back and made sure that I had the whole piecing template covered. The first thing we're going to stitch out is the trimming and placement line right here in the upper left corner. Once that's stitched out, you want to cut away this little triangle of fabric. See, I have that cut away. You want to grab your corner fabric, lay it down, centered along that line, so not here, not here. Make sure it's nice and centered, edge to edge, like that. I'm going to grab a piece of tape. I'm going to tape that down, put my hand underneath to support, put this back on the machine, and we're going to stitch the seam. The seam is stitched. Normally when you're piecing these blocks, you take the tape off, you flip it, you press it. What's unique about this block is the corners are so small, you can just leave this. We can stitch all the rest of the corners and then at the end, take it to your iron, flip and press. So I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to stitch the next trimming and placement line. You're going to do the same thing. Trim off the little triangle of fabric, put your piece of fabric down, make sure it's centered along that line, tape it, and stitch the seam, and then you have the last 2 corners to go. Same process. I'll go ahead and show everything, but I'll set it to music. I've got all the corners on. I want to take off all the tape, and I'm going to go over to my iron and press all 4 of the corners out. Again, make sure to remove any tape. This is Kimberbell paper tape. It will scorch under the iron. It'll turn brown. It gets really sticky and gross and gets on the bottom of your iron. So make sure to get all your tape off first. These are pressed nice and flat. I'm going to sit here and watch it stitch out the trimming line. It's going to make a square all the way around your block. The trimming line is all stitched. I did stop it once. It looked like one of the fabrics might have been bumped up, but it's good. We're ready to start on our home stitched applique. This is a free design. I'll make sure that's linked below for you. We're going to start with the placement line for the house fabric. I've got the neutral thread on my machine. I'm going to go ahead and leave that on. To grab your house fabric, I went ahead and ironed some fusible on the back. There's going to be some detail stitching and I want to make sure that this stays nice and flat and doesn't pucker. Cover the placement line. I'm going to add a piece of tape, then we're going to stitch the tack down. Once your fabric is tacked down, go ahead and trim everything that's outside of the tack down line. That's all trimmed. The next thing we're going to stitch out is the house satin outline that's going to go down the sides and across the bottom except for where the door is. I picked this color for my house satin outline. I'm going to put that on my machine and then stitch that out. Once your house satin outline is done, you're going to stitch out the chimney fill. I'm going to stitch mine in red. Here's the color I've picked for that. Next, we're going to stitch out the placement line for our windows. I'm going to use white. I'm going to grab my windows fabric, cover the placement line, make sure it's fusible side down and not fabric side down. It can be hard to tell on white fabric. Add a piece of tape. And then we're going to stitch the tack down and then trim. I've got those trimmed. I'm going to slide this back onto the machine. The next thing we're going to stitch is our door placement line. Place our door fabric, tack it down, and trim. So same steps. I'm going to use the red, stitch out the placement, There's my fabric, then I'll tack it down and trim. A quick note, I don't have fusible on the back of this. It's a dark fabric. I'm not concerned about the other fabric showing through. I did starch it and press it. After you've got the door tacked down and trimmed, you're going to stitch out the door satin outline. The next thing to stitch out is the roof scallop fill. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that in red. The next thing set to stitch out is the smoke detail. I'm actually going to leave that off. I'm going to skip that. I have a needle minus plus and a double arrow down. I'm going to move through that step. I live in Arizona. We don't ever use the fireplace. So what's up next for me is the sewing machine in the window. I pulled a dark gray color for this. I have a Juki TL 2020 PE. That's platinum edition, so it's silverish looking. This is kind of similar in color. That's what I'm going to use for my sewing machine. The sewing machine has stitched out. The next thing we're going to stitch are the curtains. I'm going to use this off-white color for the curtains. I don't think regular white will show up very well, so I'm going to go with the off-white so it stands out against this white fabric. The next step is the house detail and the chimney. It looks like it's going to start here. And then there's going to be a house detail and the chimney. For the house and for the roof, I want to use blue. And for the chimney, I want to use the off-white. I'm just going to have to sit and watch and then manually start and stop my machine when I need to change the threads because it's all one step on your machine. Here's what that looks like. The X is here, so it's starting somewhere around here. I'm going to go ahead and put the blue on. And then when I see it move to do the chimney, I'm going to change that to the off-white because I think that'll look weird in blue. I manually stopped my machine after the roof. I'm going to change this to the off-white and stitch out the chimney, and then actually after it stitches out the chimney it goes to stitch the doorknob, and I'd like to stitch the doorknob in red, so I'm going to manually stop it again and switch and make my doorknob red. The next thing to stitch out are the curtain ties. I'm going to stitch those in red. Next are the words, home is stitched with love. I'm going to stitch that in red as well. That's all stitched out. There's lots of little jump threads on mine. I'm going to take care of that later. We're going to stitch out the window details. We've got a window here and up here. There's a sill, a surround, and some crossbars. And then up on the top one, there's going to be a surround and crossbars. I'm going to use my off-white for both windows. It's 2 steps on the machine, but I'm going to run it together. This is all stitched out. I want to go ahead and get rid of all the little jump threads, and then we'll take this over to the table and we'll trim it and we'll make our pillow. We're ready to take this out of our hoop and trim. If you have the orange pop rulers, there is an 8.5 inch square ruler. It's the biggest of the 3 square rulers in the set. I'll make sure to link those below for you. Here's the 8.5 inch square ruler. You line it up right along the stitch lines, and then your rotary cutter goes on the inside all the way over, as far over the side as you can. If you're left-handed, you're going to be cutting on this side. Watch your fingers. Straight up into the notch. I can get this side without having to move it. Now I have to rotate. Here's my trimmed block. Doesn't that look so cute? You could put a little border on it. In fact, it doesn't even need a border. You could bind this and just make it a little mini quilt if you want. The first thing that I need to do is get my 2 smaller strips. I'm going to put them on the side. You can see that they're longer than 8 inches. I was working with scraps. I knew they had to be at least 8 inches long, and I've cut them 2.5 inches wide, which gives you a 2-inch finished strip. So you'll have 2 plus 8 plus 2, which is going to be 12, and then we're going to add top and bottom strips. So I'm going to get a 12-inch square to fit my 12-inch pillow. All I'm going to do is put right sides together, sew these on with a 1/4-inch seam. I'll go ahead and do that off camera. Here it is with the 2 side strips sewn on. I went ahead and pressed these out, so away from the center. I'm going to get a ruler here, and we want to even this out across the top. The noise you're hearing in the background is our Rosella parrot named Rainbow. I'll put a picture up on the screen. Rainbow likes to make those whistling noises, and if you whistle back, he'll go back and forth with you for a good part of the day. He's having a good day today. Let's do the other side. Here's what that looks like. It almost looks like a little placemat, doesn't it? We're going to do top and bottom. These are slightly longer than 12. I was so excited I had pieces just wide and just long enough to do this. So I'm going to do the same thing, right sides together, stitch with a 1/4-inch seam, press these out. I have the top and the bottom sewn on. I'm going to go ahead and trim away the extra, and then I'm going to double check it and make sure that it's 12.5 inches square. I actually have a 12.5-inch square ruler. It looks like I might be a little short. A lot of my stuff comes up short, but that's okay. We're making a pillow. The next thing we're going to do is put on the trim. If you don't want to use trim, you don't have to use trim. I had a bag with extra. Let's see if I have enough in this bag. Very close, but not quite long enough. This is why I like to buy stuff that I use a lot of in bulk, and I don't really measure. What I do is I'll lay it down, and I know when I go around the corner, I'll need a little bit extra, so I'll fold it. Right here should be enough, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about 4 extra pom-poms just in case. I'd rather have a little too much than not enough. Now, if you're comfortable, you can actually pin down your trim and take your 2 backing pieces and put down your backing pieces and do everything at once. I don't like to do that. I do the trim first. I'll start down here in the middle on the bottom, right here, and I'll just stitch. We're over at the sewing machine. I actually have the foot on that does not have the guide. It's going to be easier to work with the palm trim. I'm at the middle bottom of my pillow, and as I sew, I'm going to try to keep the edge right here. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It's a pillow. If it ends up a little bit crooked, you're never going to know. Make sure your palms point toward the center. If you want, you can clip or pin everything. I've done this quite a few times. I love to use the palm trim on pillows. And I just kind of use my hands instead of pins, and then I go slow. Let's go up to the first corner and I'll show you how I do the corners. Pick up the presser foot, turn. You can take the needle up and kind of fold it like binding almost. It's going to sort of lift it up and fold it down. It's sort of like machine binding. I do not worry about this being perfect because it's a pillow. I just want to make sure everything is secure. It is going to look good. Let's go ahead and go all the way around. I'm getting back to the beginning. I want to look at where I started and where it looks like I'm going to end. This pom-pom needs to go. See how it's in the way? But I want to overlap just a little bit. That's what I'm going to do. That there. I'm going to cut this right here. I just eyeball it. Don't worry about it. It's a pillow. I know I keep saying that, but really don't worry about it. It's a pillow. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep stitching. When I get to the end, I'm going to go forward and back. It's all done. I want to check my corners before I put my backing fabric on, make sure everything is attached nice and secure. Let's go put on our envelope back. Here's my envelope back. I'm actually not sure I have enough. What I usually like to have is at least a couple of inches of overlap. I like to do one side at a time. You can pin, you can clip. What I generally do is one piece at a time and one side at a time. It's just easier for me. If you want, You can put both your pieces down, right sides together. So here's the right side, pin it, and go all the way around. I'm going to do this. Take it to my machine. I'm going to sew that seam first, and then I'll sew this seam, and then I'll sew this seam. And you want to make sure not to catch your pom-poms. We're back at the machine. You want to make sure your palms are facing in. I'm going to line up on the corner here, slide this under, and put my needle down. And double check everything is going in. I'm going to go forward and back a couple of stitches. And now I'm going to go straight down the side. Again, you can pin if you want. I find because of the palms, it's a little difficult to pin. I just sort of hold them, make sure they're out of the way, hold this, and make sure it's lying nice and flat. You're not yanking it, just kind of gently pulling it to make sure it lies flat. Here's what I just sewed. Right here, the seam allowance is really small. That's where I got started. It turns into about 1/4 of an inch and then kind of got smaller again. I'm not worried about it. It's a pillow. I just want to make sure everything is attached all the way down. And I do each of the sides. That's all stitched down. That looks good. For this side, we're going to start here and go this way, unless you want to flip it over and go backwards, which actually I think I might do. Just make sure your pom-poms are going in. And there's that side. So we've sewn the bottom, the side, and the top. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'll go ahead and do that off camera. I've got the envelope back sewn on. It went back and forth right there. If you want, you can clip your corners to reduce bulk. Mine are pretty tight because I've got a small seam allowance thanks to the trim. Let's flip this right side out. I have my little clover point turner here. I know they're not going to poke out perfectly because of the palms going around the corners. I have a 12-inch pillow form. I'm going to go ahead and put this inside the pillow. Sometimes it's really hard with pillow forms to get everything to go where you want it to go. You can grab some polyfill and just put it in the corners. You'll see that there's a little bit of an opening back here because these pieces of fabric were a little short, and I knew that. Let's flip it to the front and have a look. Oh, isn't that cute? Real quick and easy gift. The snowball block frames your applique perfectly. This came out great. Quick and easy project. I am looking forward to putting this in my new craft room, which is almost done. The windows were cleaned today. Craft sewing room construction playlist is below. You can watch that and see what's going on. I hope you've enjoyed making this pillow with me today. Please like, subscribe, and share. Any comments or questions, please leave them for me below the video. Coming up, we are going to be working on the Sippin' on Sunshine quilt. I already have one video up on the channel. I go through the fabric kit. I show you everything that comes with it. I did ask if people wanted to see fabric cutting and a little more organization. It sounds like everyone wants to see that, so I'll be working on that over the weekend. Also coming up, Sip and Label appliques. I am working on a project to use all of the appliques at once. I'm working on colors, layout, size. I'll make sure these are linked below in case you want to get these. And also headed my way is the next Bella box, Cottage Garden. As soon as that gets here, I'm going to film an unboxing, show you everything that's inside, and we'll work through all of those projects together. If after watching my video you think you might want to subscribe to Perfectly Pieced, grab the Bella box, purchase anything I've shown here today, please consider using my links below. As a Kimberbell affiliate, I get a small commission, but more importantly, it lets Kimberbell know people are watching my content. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody!